Thank you for watching. I'm here with Paul Gessing. He's the president of Rio Grande Foundation. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you again, once again, for coming on the show. We're talking about the general economics, the pulse of the state there. It's pretty grim the last few, a lot of doom and gloom there. But people always like to know, especially from this show, what is the reason? If there's anything, even if it's theoretical, we like to know, the viewers, what. So I wasn't trying to pin you down on anything specific, what the governor did or didn't do, or because she is the chief executive, and
right.
we all kind of look to the leaders there in the state.
Well, ultimately, the legislature makes economic policies. They pass the laws, and those are the ground rules upon which our state's economy is built. Now, ultimately, the people who create jobs are entrepreneurs and business people, and they look for a few very important things. One is entrepreneurs like to keep as much of their money as possible. And you cited two states, Texas and Nevada, neither of which have a personal income tax. And Texas in particular has been just cleaning every other state's clock, so to speak, when it comes to the economy. And that is one very significant factor in Texas's economic growth.
A lot due to the energy income there.
Texas has done well on energy, but New Mexico's actually, as relative to its economy as a whole, much more reliant on the oil and gas industry, specifically the severance taxes. Now, that's the taxes of the entities that bring the oil and gas out of the ground. Now, you do have a lot more major corporations based in Texas. And again, we could argue, well, maybe it's because Texas has bigger cities, it has easier flight schedules, or maybe it's because they don't tax the personal income, and there's a lot more businesses that want to give their employees that kind of benefit, and they locate in a state where they have better pools of people to come and work for them, whether it's the size. New Mexico's population is not very big, or the educational environment where the people are more educated. Texas is also a right-to-work state. Right-to-work means that nobody can be forced to join a labor union as a precondition of employment. Nevada is as well, although Nevada is a little unique because the casinos sector, they do have a lot of unions there because the casinos are kind of stuck in Nevada. You can't just move them all over the place. But both states are right-to-work, and that is another thing that business executives will say is a very important reason to bring your business to a particular state. And we're seeing the so-called Rust Belt states recently, Michigan and Indiana have adopted right to work because they want to be more competitive.
Michigan did, I saw that, yeah.
They want to be more competitive with their neighboring states, those old industrial states that, for decades really have been declining. They think they can get back in the game and really attract businesses to their states by being more economically free. And I think that New Mexico needs to consider that. Every neighboring state around us, except Colorado, is a right-to-work state. And we need some significant change. I mean, that would be a significant, very controversial change, but the time for small ball and half measures is really over. This state needs some dramatic reforms because, quite frankly, I don't see Washington returning to the days of being a real supporter of New Mexico's economy in the way that it had been from the Cold War up until recent years. It's just not in the cards.
Why? Changes in the energy? I mean, as far as the research and development, as far as Los Alamos, Sandia.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not saying that anything's going to happen to those, but Washington is increasingly shifting from an entity that does things, whatever that may be, research, roads, et cetera, defense, to an entity that transfers money from one group to another. As time goes on, unless they are dramatically reformed, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid will continually increase their share of the budget dramatically, and that's going to make room for less money for other priorities. Now, we can have a discussion whether we could spend less on defense and we could spend less on some of these other programs, but I'm just saying it's a fact of life. That combined with the dramatic decline in seniority and leadership that New Mexico has with its congressional delegation. Just a few years ago, we had chairman and ranking member Domenici and Bingaman on the Energy Committee. They were pros, both of them, at bringing home the so-called bacon to New Mexico for the labs and for what other purposes there were. now we have relative neophytes, Tom Udall and Martin Heinrich in the Senate, and our congressional delegation outside of Steve Pierce is relatively new to the Washington,
What would you have them change? Just put the politics aside just for a second. Put your hat on as an analyst. What would you have them change?
At the state level?
At the state level. We're dependent on the money. The sequester started. A lot of these job losses that we had were due to the sequester.
Absolutely.
A lot of them were all sequester related. So I just want to be fair to everybody there. As an analyst, what do you think that they could do as far as both of them being senators representing the state? What would they do differently now? What would you have them do?
In terms of the congressional delegation, and I'm not blaming them. I actually think that we had a long-term pork addiction in New Mexico to this money coming in, and we've always been a poor state. That's the thing, is that the terrible economic data is finally opening a lot of policymakers and people's eyes to the fact that New Mexico really needs to get a private sector economy going. We have 0 Fortune 500 companies headquartered in this state. We have a business climate that a lot of people think that the big thing is going to be using technologies from the labs and then spinning them off into something. And they've been talking about that for decades. And I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's enough to build your economy.
It's a drop in a bucket.
And I don't think, by the way, that while I'd love to see Tesla set up shop in New Mexico, and I believe it's 5 states now. There was 4. It was New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, and Arizona. California has shoehorned its way into the game by offering some very generous subsidies. But I don't think the big fish model of economic development is a viable one going forward. I'd love to see Tesla come here. Your guess is as good as mine in terms of what they actually want in terms of economic incentives. But Texas, starting off from the point of no income tax and a right to work state. I think if you can do those 2 things, and those are big pushes, both of them are a huge push politically, but if you can do that, you are setting yourself up for economic growth, because it's not about one big company, it's about keeping the companies that want to start here, but too often go off to better economic climates.
Even on a lot of the individuals I spoke to on the left when Governor Martinez came in, he said, look, I think with her coming in, her being a Republican, it's going to bring a certain sector of businesses to New Mexico. And we say, okay, let's see what happens. But then the economy was not, it was going, now we're in a double dip here right now. At that point, we're still in a recession there. So she could take partial blame for, as far as I'm concerned. There is somewhat of a blame there, but not 100% blame on that. Overall economy has a lot to do with our state being kind of neglected. Like I said, sequester jobs kind of killed us a little bit. We're dependent on government, but those jobs that you're talking about, the ones that we lost were pretty decent, high-paying jobs. These were jobs, PhDs working in Los Alamos, defense-related. So the state was getting a lot of money from the federal government. When you look at, when you compare it with the private sector really didn't want our blue skies here. If they wanted, I think they would get that. I mean, look at how much room we have in this state. So I think our culture has to change here as far as the thought process of how do we bring these people here.
Absolutely.
So if the 2 senators that went approach, they were trying to do an emergency session, I think Tim Keller's, and you didn't feel that was the right thing to do because it gives an unfair advantage to other companies?
Well, we had a mixed view on Tesla. Like, again, would I love to see them come here? Yes. But Tesla, to an extent, not found even among other companies that traditionally have gone after a lot of what you call corporate welfare and tax incentives, Tesla's really emphasized that in their business model. The whole electric vehicle marketplace is being propped up by thousands and thousands of dollars per vehicle tax credits from the federal government, not to mention some states. And then when they've been talking about coming into the states, if they had provided some specific criterion, that would have been very helpful. And I don't know why they're not, except for the fact that they want to get as much as they possibly can and then be able to choose among those various things.
But that's natural though, right? That's the private sector. They want the maximum benefits for their money. I mean, I think that's understandable though.
Absolutely. But if you have at least a criterion list, here's what we really want. And if everybody provides that, then we can have that discussion amongst those. But I would like to see a little more transparency on Tesla's side saying, here's what we want.
Here's what we like to do. We take a short break. Take a short break, I'll be right back.